the reason I am at 41 years old starting a YouTube video channel is I have so many projects that one, I'm super overwhelmed with the amount of projects I have. I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but I start many, many projects. I have all these grandiose ideas. I'm like, oh, I can do that, I can do that, and I can do that. And then you get into it and you realize, holy man, this there's a lot more to it to get these projects done. And then when you know, because you got to wait on parts or you got to wait on whatever parts and one, I mean, we nobody can know everything, so we got to learn how to do something. I mean, I'd like to think I'm pretty dang good at figuring things out, you know, but at the end of the day, it's easy to get discouraged. And I have some really cool projects, or at least I think they're cool. I mean, to each their own, right? But I get bored of things really quickly. I run into a challenge or a hiccup of some sort, and the next thing I know, I'm like, well, I don't want to deal with that because, well, it's not fun and exciting anymore. And the thing is when you get discouraged and you know, you easily get sidetracked. There's so many things that happen, and you move on to the next exciting thing. Like I was watching Forged in Fire, so I bought myself a forge and a anvil and all that kind of stuff. Because and I messed around for a bit, but you got to stick with something. You got to stick with things. And like I still own my first truck. It's a '59 Merc. I got it when I was 16. It was a two-wheel drive. Now it's a four-wheel drive. And I've maybe, like, other than the first year and a bit I've owned it, I've maybe put 1,000 K on it since I was 16. Or since I was 17, probably, when it was no longer drivable because I blew the diff up and whatnot. So I swapped engines. I did this. I did that. It's a four-wheel drive. But I got bored with it because I had all these grandiose ideas that, oh, I'm gonna do this with it. I'm gonna do that with it. And what ends up happening is you move on to the next thing when you get bored of something. My dad said to me a few times, he's like, you've got to work on. You can't do huge jobs all the time because what ends up happening is you lose interest, and then, of course, you lose interest, and you're like, oh, that's going to cost thousands of dollars. So you move on to the next thing. Well, the problem with moving on to the next thing is now you've got 100 projects and you're still adding to those projects, right? Whether they're intended on being a project, but you get bored of it because you're like, oh, well, I can't get parts for this, or it's a shit show to get parts for, box sides for an 81 Bronco, whatever. You got to get them in the States. Well, you try ordering them, they won't send them because you got to do something else. And to be honest, it's just laziness from me that I don't have those box sides right now. But I've already moved on to the next thing, and probably 4 things after that. Like I bought a sewing machine, messed around with it for, because I got all these seats that are not very good. I got a 61 Fairlane. Seats are really bad in it. I'm like, I need to redo these seats. I don't want to pay someone to do those seats. It's going to cost, whatever, $1,000 or something like that. Well, sewing machine's this. I can buy some fabric and then I'll learn how to do it. And then I'll, you know, I've got multiple projects that need new seat covers, or, you know, the seats need to be redone. You know, it never ends. It's so easy to get sidetracked, want to do this, want to do that. And I mean, I've got more engines pulled apart than most people even would. Well, okay, not most, but a majority of people would even, you know, like, why would you pull them apart if you're not going to do anything with it? Well, guess what? It comes back to the simple fact that, hey, you know what? I get sidetracked. I get these grandiose ideas, think, oh yeah, that won't be too bad. And then you're like, well, in order to do it correctly, I've got to do all this. Well, it's not really worth the money. I guess really at the end of the day, what it comes down to is you got to pick a project. My buddy Kendall said this to me. He's like, dude, you just got to pick a project and stick with it. And I disagreed with him. And I've thought about this multiple times. I'm like, nah, you don't want to get bored with something, so you got to have multiple projects. Well, no, he was on to something, and maybe he didn't explain it to me. But what he really was saying is, he knows me. I've known him for, since I was probably 19-ish. So 22 years or so. So this guy knows me. He's like, you get sidetracked with too many projects. And I've had the ability to do a bunch of random stuff and always be able to be on something else, which is awesome. Don't get me wrong. It is absolutely awesome to be able to start new projects. That's the exciting part. Doing the project and all the ups and downs that go along with it are, well, they're challenging. We don't necessarily want challenges. We just want to enjoy what we're doing. So I just kept buying vehicles. Well, that one runs. I'll go have some fun with it. And next thing I know, I've got 20 plus vehicles, and like three run ish. Well, guess what happens? None of them get done because they're big jobs, right? You got big ideas for them, and then you're like, well, I'm bored of this, and I move on to the next one. So the challenge with that is, well, you just keep buying more projects and you run out of space for putting these projects because you fall in love with them and you don't want to get rid of them because you're never going to get the money paid for them, especially after you wreck them or blow the engine or a diff, or it gets stolen and insurance wants you to do an inspection on them. Well, I'm not driving modern vehicles, so it doesn't make sense. It makes sense to spend, you know, thousands of dollars just to get it back on the road and not do what you want to do with it, right? Because we all know projects are very expensive. Maybe I'm too picky, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the main reason I'm making this video right now is, and why I've started a YouTube channel, which I've been wanting to do for probably since Roadkill started, to be honest, is because I have so many projects and I'm not focused. And at the end of the day, I feel like this is going to be a way to make things, kind of put myself in a position where I need to focus on one task at a time, get that project done, you know. So if you're interested, I know I said I was going to put a video out about all my projects, but I feel like this is kind of that preemptive, still messing that up, or whatever, video to kind of explain why I have so many projects. Please comment, subscribe if you're interested. I mean, like it, dislike it, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. You run you. And to be honest, a lot of it really comes down to I'm hoping this will help me stay focused on a task and get her done. See you later.